Hi guys, it's Michelle from Movement Lesson. I want to take a moment because I have someone here with SPML or post-SPML surgery, and I want to talk about the importance of working with posture after SPML. A lot of people go for the gross motor skills, the stand, but you have to remember the beauty of SPML or a lot of pelvic history or surgeries have to do with the posture itself and the pubic bone strike. Can you move that? So when you're working with someone that's pre-SPML, they tend to ride back on the pelvis. They tend to do that. Now, on top of that too, when there's scissoring or subluxation, now my vision's off as well. And this is where people get confused, and this is one of my specialties, is not so much that the structural vision, but the visual functions. So when you're back here like this, and you're trying to look around, right, that's a different vision. You really have more of a tunnel, an immature vision, versus that peripheral. So if I'm up here over my pubic bone, over my pelvis, right, I can start doing these kind of upper quadrants, lower quadrants. So a lot of the complaints are when you have cerebral palsy, which is the most common SPML procedures and so forth, but is that not having that upper quadrant vision, right? Going into back arching, because again, the abductors are getting too overactive, or the hamstrings, whichever are the complications within the contractures of the muscles, the contractures of the ligaments, because gravity is just so rough on the system, because usually a child is not mobile as much as we'd like them to be. Another vision that people don't think of, using the pubic bone strike, I call it looking into the Tupperware drawer. You know, that overlook, that peekaboo with the vision, right? When I'm back here, right, I can't get over my system to do those things. So one of the first things you need to work on post-surgery, and that's something we specialized here at our clinic, and I'm working on my SPML course, pre and post-operative, but is to get over and work with that posture. So I'm just going to show you quickly what I'm doing here with Felipe. Now I know Felipe didn't have the surgery, but again, just to give an example of where we're at. The biggest problem with doing lives with sometimes with munchkins is they move around, they get distracted and so forth. So to show something specific, I'm going to work with Felipe. So we're just going to move this a little bit. Now, because he's so tall, I have to work with him in such a way that I'm above him, right? Just like if I was working with the munchkin, but he's a 6'2" munchkin. So again, when he's sitting, right, and he's presenting with all of this. Now, this is a technique that you learn in my segment 1. It's called a hanging technique. But I need to make sure I'm secure, right? And I'm here, and I'm just really mastoids, and then I'm feeling where he is within the upper neck area, right? Profiles. I don't use clam hands. And again, these are just techniques of movement lessons to learn. But I'm looking for where I can get him where he's going to start to activate his posture over the pelvis. It can take a while, guys, because this is a movement that they've never done before. But I'm already starting to work on his peripherals, right? And as he can get around and that pelvis tilt. I do like working with inflatables sometimes, but at the same time, you have to remember, guys, when you're post-SPML, you don't want to activate muscles that aren't meant to use in the movement. Right? And so you have new muscles that are babes, or muscles that are suddenly available to movements that they haven't done before. So you really want to offer the option of a more stable environment for that person. Right? Now, Felipe, he can handle an inflatable, but you know, maybe somebody too with a 40% subluxation and so forth, and we're trying to save the hip, I'm not going to go for any kind of inflatables whatsoever. You really got to watch. I'm not using the inflatables for him for balance. It's just that he's 6'2", he's a big boy, and I need this for him to counter. You don't need that for a small child. anybody who feels that putting a small child on a physio ball to create balance, please remember when you go to the car, there's no trampolines and there's no balls that we're walking on. This is not a moonwalk. That's not where balance comes from. Balance comes from the pelvis, and our floors don't move. They're capable of moving, and we learn those skills later. But don't feel because it's an external force of what you think is balance when balance comes from within. And so really what I have to start doing, see how I can start working with his vision and his posture over that pelvis. I'm going to counter, and again, these are really quick demonstrations because he's had so much of me, we can do this, and this is, but see, now you can see how I can work on these visions. When a child has developed dystonia and so forth, CVI, all of those kind of things around cerebral palsy, and now you've had the SPML, their system's so used to jumping away and then trying to see, and as you can see, he got a little worried that I was going to knock him over, right? After all these years, he still doesn't trust me. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so you need that where the pelvis, see, can counter. Not that the body's moving into vision. That's a completely different function, right? So please, I know it's very, everybody wants a child to have SPML and they're walking the next day. Though I don't walk with casts, I really wait for the casts to come off because, again, with casts on, the casts slip. I don't care if you have those little grippy feet, they slip. They're not a good floor because why? You have something between you and the floor. So I do my detailed work before I start working on that. As soon as the cast comes off, then I go for all of those skills. But as you can see here, what I'm working on, see that counter everything through that pelvis. So these are things to consider with SPML. Again, we're all looking for the big stuff, the walking, the getting from point A to point B. How do you get from point A to point B when your vision can look short or small or nearsighted to that far-sighted? If your child's vision can't go past 6 to 8 feet, how are they supposed to walk down the hallway? So SPML is an amazing surgery, but the complexities of the post-operative care are so amazing, but you really have to be working with someone that's taking all that into consideration for your child. Remember, this is functional vision, how the vision works, not visual functions, meaning if I have an astigmatism. Now, again, if I did have an astigmatism, I was working with patching on a child, then I could conclude that in there. If that's the first time he's growing, right? And now from here, he can get such a different dynamic with his vision. So I hope this answers some of the things that you're working with or considering after SPML. Please, this is not about gross motor skills. Your vision, your spine, your breathing, your hands, your feet are fine motor skills. And I mean that seriously about the spine, because where movement originates from are actually fine motor skills of the spine. They turn into gross motor skills and they start combining the two, but you start working with the other things around that. And they're just as important. So here are just some thoughts to think about if you're thinking about getting SPML and what you're going to be working with post-operative care. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.